Jamie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you. And oh my God, I love your necklace.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm always happy to be a part of book group discussions and talk about
Oh,
books.
yes, that is the most beautiful necklace. It goes really well with your earrings too.
Thank
Oh, it's
you.
two of them.
It's one long one that you can wrap or wear long. It's
Ah,
just like a piece of costume. It was not
yeah.
expensive. It's just fun.
Is it okay? So this is going to sound very strange, but you've got to understand where I come from. Is it strong enough to choke somebody with?
Probably not. It would probably snap.
That's a shame. That's a shame. Yeah, my mind has been on murders for some reason this week. There's a new I don't know anybody everybody's into emojis if you know what they are. And they announced the new emojis. There was the International Emoji Day was on the 10th of September.
Hmm.
And they introduced the new emojis, and one of them is this dead looking tree with no leaves on it, and it's like a spooky thing. And then there's a shovel, and then there's a thumbprint and a blob. And I'm like, oh, this is like the setting. So 2025 is going to be the setting of a bunch of murder emojis.
All right. I didn't know that. I didn't know about National Emoji Day. I stick with the
I,
basics. The
well,
smiley
I do,
face, the winky face, the
yeah.
kissy face.
Well, and the big emoji for 2025 is a face with bags under the eyes.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I
That
was
may
like, oh
that
yeah,
may prove true. We'll see.
right. Just in case you wanted to know, there's a place called Emoji. It's an encyclopedia of emojis, and you just go into it and you can like search and it will give you the emoji that's the closest. It's really cool.
That is
It's
interesting.
free. It's
Look at
free.
what
It's
I'm
like,
learning already, and it's only been a couple
yeah.
months.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And to get things started, I'm going to go ahead and ask you if you will tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started writing.
Oh, I live in Connecticut with my husband and my two kids, although one's fully grown and living in New York City now working, and the other's in college, so he's not here at the moment. And our little dog Mo, who you may hear bark at some point while we're talking. I was a lawyer in my first adult career, and then I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years. And once my kids were school aged, I decided to pursue a sort of lifelong dream of like, I want to write a book. When I was young, I wanted to write movies. But then as I got older, I was like, maybe I'll try to write a book. And that's what I did. I had the time and I wrote my first manuscript. It went nowhere. It's under the bed. It took me a couple of manuscripts to get my agent, and then my first book came out in 2014. I started in romance, so I have 12 romance novels, and then I have 6 women's fiction novels like this. The Beauty of Rain was my last one.
Yeah. Okay. So is there a big difference between writing romance, straight romance, and writing women's
For me,
fiction?
there were a couple of differences. Obviously, romance is really about a couple's journey to commitment. So it's a relationship story, but it's a romantic relationship. Women's fiction is also a relationship driven story, but usually sisters or friends or mother daughter, other familiar kinds of dynamics. So the similarity is that you're still focusing on the development of relationship and the way that relationship changes as the people involved change, and the way that relationship changes the people. That's the same, but obviously in women's fiction, you're not dealing with love, romantic love. And also, I was able to age up my heroines, which as I was going into my 50s and dealing with teenagers and older parents that were getting sick and the issues that I wanted to talk about or explore, I wanted to be able to write about those things and write heroines who were closer to my own age, which in romance, I know that they do more now, but back in the 20 teens, they really wanted your heroines to be like 28. And I was feeling further and further away from that age group, and dating in the whole,
Mhm.
just like understanding how people date today. I've been married for 25 years and stuff. It just started feeling less authentic to me. So those were my reasons for switching and the differences I see between the two
Do you
genres.
feel more comfortable writing women's fiction now?
For sure. Obviously, there's broader things I can discuss. There's not a known ending. You don't have to have any, although they're still encouraged by most editors. And it allowed me to, like I said, talk about things that I think were important and relevant to me as a person. And for me, storytelling is very personal. The forward in this book, or the author's note, this book in particular, was very personal, or grew out of a very personal experience of my own. Just, yeah, I'm happy I made the switch, and I feel like I have a lot more leeway in what I can write.
Yeah, I think writing different kinds of love or relationships, sometimes we're not just stuck in a man, two people that are
Yeah.
sexual relationships, I guess I'm trying to say is that, but we all share different kinds of relationships, and having relationships is so important to our own quality of life. If we don't have relationships, it's just not, it's not healthy, and you're not as fulfilled as you could possibly be. But you said your childhood dream was to write screenplays. Have you ever considered going back and writing
Not,
screenplays?
because I have since learned, once getting involved in the writing community and learning more, screenplays are basically all dialogue, and you don't have the other tools like internal narrative and setting and other things to help show the reader what this character is feeling. And I think that it must be probably above my pay grade and difficulty to write a really emotionally satisfying screenplay with its just dialogue dependent. That feels, maybe someday I'll be up to that challenge, but right now.
Well, have any of your books been optioned or anything for
No,
screenplays?
we've had some interest. My agent has
Mm.
had some interest, but ultimately they didn't go anywhere. And which I was never surprised, because the way all my romances are structured, they're 3-book series that have a series arc, but I also tend to deal with some darker topics in romance maybe than what the movie people are looking for. So they're not light, and they're not easy, like infertility or mental health issues or physical health issues. Just, I don't know, sexual assault and gun violence. I've taken on a lot of different things. And so I think when the movie people start looking at that, they're looking for something maybe that's just a little less intense.
I was actually thinking of your women's fiction. If it was more for me, a Reese Witherspoon type, because I thought that there was some really, the relationships you have among the women in your books, especially your later books, are like, oh, that would be perfect. That would be a perfect,
I would love that. But I think she's got her hands with everything that she's already taking on. And I think honestly, sometimes I know that's a lot of writers' dream, is to have see their books become to life in movies. But I have two things that make me very not as eager maybe as some for that. One of my all-time favorite books was Jodi Picoult's My Sister's Keeper. And when that came out as a movie, I was excited to go see it. And then I didn't particularly think the casting choices were great, but more importantly, they changed the ending of the book completely, which
know.
changed the whole message of the story utterly. And I was stunned when it got to the end and it was so different. And I just thought it totally changed the whole message of the story. And also listening to my own audio, I've tried to listen to a couple of my audiobooks, and sometimes with the actors, the way that they deliver a line or whatever, it's not how I hear it in my head when I write it. It has a different tone or inflection. And so it like gives me like the heebie-jeebies. And so I think, oh my gosh, if someone took my book and tore it apart and made it into like their vision of my story, I would probably have a really difficult time with that.
I was just curious because about, you were talking that dialogue's not your strong point, your strong suit. And I was thinking, oh, maybe if somebody was to take it and do a screenplay of one of your books, you could see how they imagine the dialogue that you didn't include. But that's beside the point. I want to talk a little bit about The Beauty of Rain, because you've got a lottery winner in there. So I just think that people who, I don't play the lottery.
Yeah.
I think I'm a winner every single time there's a game, because I never play and give them money. And they're obviously,
I think
I
you're
am
the
a
winner
winner.
too.
Okay, because I have people in my family or in my husband's family who have invested a lot of money that could have been used elsewhere in never winning the lottery. But beside the point. But it was, so that was just, so when I see a book that's got that featured in it and the repercussions of what winning does for you. So how did this all come about for you? What is the backstory for this?
The backstory for the book, or why I chose to have
Why you chose to do lottery?
the overall themes of the book about what's really important in life versus what people think is important or what they focus on. And so a lottery winner, right? Most of us would think, oh my gosh, if I won the lottery, my life would be perfect. I could finally be happy. I could finally relax. I would finally have everything I need. So I have this woman who wins the lottery, and then the first thing they do with that money costs her husband and her child. And so it's that juxtaposition of that ice in the face of, you think that you need these things to be happy, but really probably you already have what you need to be happy, as long as you're investing in it the way maybe you should be or could be. So that's why I chose that particular backstory for Amy.
Yeah. And going through the finding out what is more important in life, because there's a lot of relationships. It's with her sister, it's with her niece, it's like all of these different things. How did they all merge together, meld together to come up with a story? Are there different other pieces that you found fascinating that you wanted to work into this? I know it's been a while since you wrote the book, and I'm
No,
making you.
no. My motivation for the story was my own personal health crisis, that where I came very close to not surviving. And those 9 days that I was in the hospital were very long and scary, and then also very thought-provoking. And I came out of that with this sense of wanting to go around and shake everybody and say, don't waste a day, because you just don't know. I was a young, healthy woman, and then something happened and all of a sudden I wasn't, and it was very fast and very sudden and could have gone differently. And so I wanted to develop a story that would really hit people in the heart with that message, and in a way that they couldn't just put down and not, and then forget about. And I will say that I've had some of the most beautiful fan mail of my career with this book as a result of that. So the whole coming up with how to tell a story that would deliver that message the right way. Obviously, the suicidal sister now who feels she has nothing to live for and has a lot of guilt about the way that her marriage and her relationship with her son, who was on the spectrum, a young boy, her impatience and things, like she has a lot of regrets. And I think a lot of women, and meanwhile, her sister has what looks like the perfect life on the outside, the handsome husband. They're both highly successful. Her sister is a successful lawyer, and that sister's husband is a successful real estate guy, and their kids, but their kids are struggling because the parents aren't ever around. And that sister Kristen is always feeling guilty that she's not giving enough to work. She's not giving enough to her kids. And now her sister has attempted suicide, and now she has this. And that too is talking to, I think, a lot of women like myself, and probably you and many others who are listening. I think we can all relate to that. There's a lot of pressure on women to be all things to all people, and we lose ourselves a lot in our roles as mother, sister, daughter, wife. We lose a lot of our individuality, I think, at times, and it's important to find the right balance. Kristen's story in her relationship, as she and Amy are rubbing each other the wrong way and trying to make each other see each other's points of view. Kristen's story is about finding balance and joy in small things and being more authentic to what she really needs versus what the pressure and the expectations that maybe she felt younger. And Amy's story is about finding a will to live again when you lose everything. And that was also partly inspired. I live in Connecticut, and when I first moved up here from Pennsylvania, within a couple years of living here, there was a horrible event. We woke up Christmas morning, and a house in Stamford, the town one town over, had burned down. And this woman had lost all three of her children and her parents in that house fire on Christmas morning. And Her name was Madonna Badger. You can look her up. She's done YouTube talks and stuff. So I read about her. I've watched her YouTube talks, but I think about her every single Christmas. And so Amy's story was slightly based on that experience as well. What does one do when everything that's really important is gone? How do you start over? Can you start over? What do you cling to keep going? And by putting these two sisters with these very different situations in this sort of forced proximity crucible, with Amy living in her house, living in her sister's house now, hopefully that it was the strongest possible way to push that message. And then what happens in the book? I don't know if everyone here has read the book. There's a twist, a surprise, so I don't know how much I can talk
No,
about.
no twist.
Not.
We don't
Okay.
because people find books over the years. And so I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And then when you were talking about this, one of the things you said is that women have to be really sure about self-care. And I was thinking, oh, in your research and thing, or is there something that you do for your own self-care out of all of the experiences that you have that you would like to share with us?
I do a lot of things, I would say, maybe too
Okay.
many more lately, but I think I've always had a pretty decent ability to make myself matter as well as, and still be very giving to the people who need me. But a couple of things I do for sure is I do take usually one girls trip a year with my close friends, my non-professional, my non-writing colleague friends. We do a 5 to 7 day girls trip, whether it's to wine country or we've gone to Europe. We've done a lot of things. And that's really restorative to me. Time away from like normal life and responsibilities with other women is important to me. I also take time with writer friends to do a lot of private retreat work, about 3 times a year, I would say. I do, those are shorter, like 4 day trips. Walking my dog. My husband and I love hiking and things like that. So anytime I can be in nature, I walk the dog every day for a couple miles, which is always just quiet time for me. Simple things, calling people on the phone. I think we're in such a tech heavy texting and Facebooky direct messaging world. And when I walk my dog, I tend to call people, and just connecting in a real conversation is much more rewarding than texting and Snapchatting and all of the other things that we've gotten used to doing since 2008. And that's it. I'm not a big exercise. A lot of people exercise or they do spa things, massages, whatever it is that brings you joy. It's really just about finding the things that allow you to disconnect for just a little while. And as my friend Barbara O'Neill would say, refill the well. It's important to refill the well. And she does it with painting and other things. She's very artistic. So anything like that, it doesn't have to be a big, giant, expensive thing. It can just be making time to do the things that make you feel happy.
But just the little things that sometimes are just sitting and having a
Those
cup of
phone
tea.
calls.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now I would say walking the dog for 2 hours outside in 106-degree temperature here in Texas it's really uncomfortable for both the dog and for
Oh,
myself.
yeah.
Okay.
No, that would not be
Because
good. That's the nice thing about where I live is we have
yes.
milder climate and pretty much year round. A couple of days in the winter will be too cold and a couple of days in the summer are too hot, but for the most part, we're pretty good.
Okay, so you just had a birthday because I
I
saw
did.
beautiful flowers on your in your Instagram feed, and I was like, oh, okay. So did anything special happen this year for you with besides a lot of people just putting love
No,
on
this was
you?
a quiet birthday. My kids were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm 58. Like, I'm not 4. There's no big party." And my husband and I went out to dinner, but no, it was just a nice quiet day. I've been busy doing a lot of other things, and so it was just. But I'm still here, and that's important. Like I said, ever since that thing happened to me, just for me, it's okay. Another year.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just make a new commitment to really try to make sure I'm doing the things that I think are important with my time and making the people that I think are important feel important and just thinking about that kind of
So
stuff.
what are you working on next?
I'm not really allowed to talk about it right now, but I think what I can say is that I am it's going to be in magical realism, and it's still a women's fiction-y based story. It's a story of a woman in midlife going through some things, but there's an element of magical realism, but I'm not really at liberty to say much more than that. And it won't come out until winter of 26. So it's going to be a while. But when I'm allowed, I will
Uh-huh.
reveal.
Okay, that's fine. We don't want to do
I'm
that.
sorry. I know. I was, oh, what am I going to say about that? I'm not really
Yeah.
allowed to say.
That's fine. It's fine. It's not that we
Yeah.
promise us to tell anybody, blah, 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 but we would. So I know you can't trust us. We are going to take time right now to switch into the fresh fiction facts. This is where I ask you rapid fire questions and
Oh
you have
boy.
to answer off the top of your head.
I'm so
So
bad at these. Okay. I'll do my best.
so we're going to move from nice, quiet, you could have thought about these to, oh my gosh, what is she really asking me? So the first one's going to be is who was your first book boyfriend or
Oh
girlfriend?
man. My first one, I probably don't even remember way back when, but I will cop to being a fan of Edward Cullen out of Twilight. I went through a little heavy crush there for a while with that one, which was surprising to me.
Okay. Uh, okay. What is a genre that you never want to read again?
Probably like Amish fiction, things like that would not appeal to me.
Okay. If you have, from all of your books, because you've written almost 20, which is the character from all of them that you would love to be friends with?
Ooh, that's a fun question. Um, Vivi from, what was the title? I don't even remember the title. Worth the Wait. Vivi was a sweetheart and an underdog with a big heart. So she would be Erin from, what was that one called? If You Must Know. Erin was fun. The characters who are the least like me, the ones who are more like bold and outgoing and extroverted, are the ones I would like to be friends with.
That's good. See, that's good. You're writing people that you would like to be
Yeah.
alive in real life.
Mhm.
Okay. What is the motto that you live by? This is an easy one because you've already told us, but go for it.
Make the most of each day, but also something I've always lived by is honesty in all things. Like I'm a extremely straight arrow, very honest. What I say and I say what I mean.
Okay. Now we're going back into the book world.
Okay.
Which book world that's either you or you've read or a friend of you has written, what world would you like to step into?
Oh, this is going to sound crazy because it would be a scary world, but I loved the invisible life of Addie LaRue. I loved that character. I loved the 300-year time span and the way, just everything about that book. And so it was fascinating to me, and even the dark and how the dark like takes her here and there. So if I could do it knowing it would be safe, that would be exciting.
Okay. All right. So you said that you like to walk and you're athletic of a sort, but what is your most memorable athletic feat?
I don't know if this counts definitely as an athletic feat, but I did an outward bound program, a 28-day in the woods, in the mountains in North Carolina with no tent, no nothing, hiking every day with 60 pounds on my back, rock climbing, caving, all of that, like living in a cave for 3 days and didn't know what time it was. So it wasn't athletic in the competitive sense, except for competitive with yourself of how you could push yourself and what you can endure. That's probably my most memorable because it was so lengthy.
Wow, I don't think I could have survived day 3. All right. What is the childish thing that you still do as an adult?
I eat a lot of candy at the movies. I love cherry Slurpees and Milk Duds and Swedish fish and all that. So I'm still a kid when it comes to what I eat.
So is that just when you go to the movies or when you're watching movies at home?
I try not to buy it at home because if it's here, I have no willpower. But I just made myself sick this week making. My daughter was coming out to spend the night for the weekend, and so I made brownies and I ate a lot of batter, and I got sick that night. So I have a terrible sweet tooth. Yeah.
It's that sugar overload. That'll get you every single time.
Mhm.
Okay, what is a bad habit that followed you from childhood to teenagers to college and that you may have given up or not for adulthood?
It's a combination of procrastination and disorganization. I think I'm mildly ADD. And so my method of organizing is just piles everywhere. I know what's in the piles, but it looks really messy. But I also tend to procrastinate when there's something I'm nervous about doing, or I'm not sure how to get started. I'm a pretty bad procrastinator. I'm a very deadline driven worker. And that's
Okay,
always,
so in your writing, are you a pantser or a
I'm a
plotter?
plotter because I know I have deadlines coming, but I have all these good intentions of I'm going to write 1,000 words a day and finish this book in this much time. And it never happens. I daydream, I think, I skip days because I get anxiety because I feel lost in the story and I can't force myself to focus. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that deadline's coming. And then the external pressure helps me just push and focus. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, people are talking about things that we'll talk about later. All right. So that's it. You survived the fresh fiction
Oh,
fact.
that was easy.
Yeah. So now, before we end the part that's recorded, would you please tell readers how they can keep in touch with you and how they can get the secret of when you're able to talk about the book that's coming out in
First place I'll
2026?
be able to announce that secret will be my newsletter, which you can find the sign up for on my website, which is just jamiebeck.com. And I'm also, obviously, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. At Instagram, I think it's at writer Jamie Beck, and on Facebook, it's Jamie Beck Books. And those are really the main things. I tried to do TikTok and stuff. It's just, I can't keep up with all, there's just too many platforms to try to be busy on. So I restrict myself to Facebook and Instagram because they're comfortable and easier.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm
Thank
glad that you're
you.
going to stick around to answer a few readers' questions
Sure.
afterwards. But it's been a pleasure, as always, to see you.
Thank you, you too.